Andrew Jackson was born in Waxhaw, North or South Carolina. He was born on March 15, 1767. His mother was widowed 3 weeks before Jackson's birth. He basically lost his entire family due to the American Revolutionary War. His mother and both older brothers died of hardship suffering during the war. Andrew Jackson's biggest achievement was that he was the 7th president. He was serving 2 terms from 1829 to 1837. His presidency was a very controversial one in its time. Jackson took one of the most powerful men in America, both in politics and business, and almost always came out on top through sheer force of will when deal making. In my opinion, Jackson's biggest failure or embarrassment was his ethnic cleansing of all the Indian tribes. Jackson felt that he could use their land for economic purposes. He could sell the land and profits would go towards the federal revenue. Back then, cotton was a major export, so land was valuable. The more land they could use to grow the cotton, the more cotton they would receive. The more cotton they got, the more money they could use towards themselves. Andrew Jackson's biggest allies were the British. Andrew was a bully himself, but he couldn't take it from someone else. Karma sucks, Andrew. Jackson was a teen during the Revolutionary War and was taken prisoner by the British. He once was told to get down on his knees and shine the Englishman's shoes. He refused, and the officers stuck him with a sword. Andrew Jackson's biggest enemy were the Indians. Like I said, Jackson felt that he could use their land for money and take their cotton and use it for himself. That made them very upset, and they learned to hate each other and just want to go to war. I'm sure you can see how Jackson felt about the Indians. His view on the Indians were very poor. He thought he could just walk all over them and take their property from them like they were nothing. Andrew Jackson also had a very poor view on the African Americans. He hated slaves and was extremely racist. Anyone who wasn't his type, his color, or his ethnicity, he just hated on and acted like he could walk all over them. A famous quote that Andrew Jackson used to say was, "A good Indian is a dead Indian." This quote basically means that Jackson thought any Indian was as good as one that was just uselessly rotting in the ground. The funny thing is, the best quote to describe Andrew Jackson is exactly from something that he said. My quote about Andrew Jackson is, "Money is power, and in that government which pays all the public differs of the states will all political power be substantially consensual." I think this quote represents how selfish Andrew Jackson was. He thought of himself before other people. He only wanted what was good for him and did not care how it affected him. When Andrew Jackson was younger, he lived with his uncle. At that time, he was around 13. He then joined the local military and served in the Revolutionary War. Eventually, him and one of his brothers were captured by the British. After they were released, his brother died a few days after. They were scared, and he was diagnosed with smallpox. His mother also ended up dying, and he was 14 because she had a disease. He became an orphan at the age of 14, so he was raised by his uncle. Later on in life, Andrew Jackson became a lawyer. He established Tennessee's constitution and was made Tennessee's first rep. In 1815, he became a hero. He led 5,000 soldiers and defeated 7,500 of British in Orleans. In 1822, Jackson was re-elected to the U.S. Senate. Though when he was a candidate for the House of Representatives, he lost against John Quincy Adams, but in 1828, he won the election by a landslide against John. Then in 1845, Jackson died of tuberculosis on June 8, 1845, at the age of 78. TB would be treated with shots or vaccines today, but back then there was nothing they could really do, and he was just sat there to die. Today, if you went to the Jackson's grave, you would visit Nashville, Tennessee. It is near other very historical places that people visit. I would give Jackson a 4 out of 5 because he defeated the British, but he was also very cruel to the Indians and other people that were not like him.